Anyway, the clock is ticking down for the All-London, all-unbeaten British Super-Middleweight title at the O2 on May 21st. The build-up has kicked in. Today at the DeGale Youth Gym near Latimer Road Tube, the two fighters came head-to-head in the same gym that they shared for many years before turning professional. In one corner, George Groves, who was a guest on this show last week. And in the other corner, the British champion, James DeGale. There was a lot of tension in the air, and Groves left quickly at the end. The fight is building very nicely. I sent along the young Jedi, Anchor Desai, to have a poke about. He grabbed hold of James and he started by asking him about the memories and emotions he experienced when he stepped through the gym's doors.
I was thinking about the way I used to school Georgie Groves day in, day out, and how I used to beat him up in sparring. I say coming through the gym now, walking through the door, just been heaps of memories and good memories.
What would you say George's greatest strength is, in your opinion?
His great strength is, I can't even pull one out because, you know what, the guy's got more balls than brains. So that's why the fight is going to be good and intriguing for the first couple rounds, because he will give it a go. He won't freeze, I don't think. I don't think anyway. You never know until you get there, and there's 20,000 people there. But we'll see. But I can't really pull a positive. Like, his flaws are unbelievable. His defence and stuff like that. He's got so many.
When you guys used to spar in that ring behind us, describe what that used to be like when you were here.
When we used to spar, it used to be fun for me. It used to be just, I used to move him around. Sometimes he used to get in there and give it a good go, and I just used to obviously have to give him a dig just to put him in his place. But apart from that, it was just nice, comfortable sparring.
So where does the feud stem from? Why the hate?
The hate because he's lived in my shadow for half his life. So obviously he's going to be bitter and a bit jealous. Obviously he beat me in amateurs, and obviously I went on and won Olympic gold medal. So he's always been that kid behind James DeGale, always that ugly dude behind James. It's a fact. It's no banter. I'm not winding up. It's just a fact. And obviously he just don't like me, and I don't like him.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that fight in the amateur the one that you lost?
I personally thought I won, and if everyone that I've spoke to that's watched it said that I've won, but as I say, it's amateur boxing. It happens. What happens in boxing? So it's just a part of it, and you have to put up with it.
Will you guys kiss and make up afterwards?
After, I'll probably shake his hand and pat him on his head and say well done. But apart from that, we'll never be friends, never be associates. So I just want to rub this itch off my shoulder. This flea just kicking on my shoulder. I just want to rub off. This ain't a big fight for me personally. It's a massive fight for George Groves. And I say it's a great event. It's going to be a great fight while it lasts. But just expect a great performance from me, man.
Smoking hot tension there, my friends. Those two kids spent a lot of time together, and in fact they both told me, and I've known the two of them for an awful long while, they weren't friends under any stretch of the imagination, but they were club mates, and that meant they often sat next to each other. They were in buses on 5-hour journeys back from fights and shows. They sat down and ate. They raided McDonald's on the motorways together, that type of stuff. They all went into motorway service station, nicked as much as they could, that kind of stuff. They did stuff together, but they never socialised. And now there's a little bit more hate. Anyway, that was James talking earlier on to Anchor. Now, the promoter on May 21st will be Frank Warren. This is a fight he fought really hard to make happen, and it was not easy. Anyway, at the DeGale Youth today, Anchor also spoke to Frank and asked him to put into words what it was like to put together a fight, and has it come too early for both these unbeaten young boxers?
Yeah, it's a fight that could have, in a couple of years' time could have even been bigger, but it is a big fight, and much of that harks back to the days of when they were amateurs and that controversial fight that they had, and James going on to win a gold medal. Since then, both of them turned pro. George has done brilliantly to win a Commonwealth title, and James has done equally, if not better, I think, in winning the British title. So it's got all the ingredients in the mix there with the sort of mutual dislike that they have between them of being a real, boiler on the night. I think it's going to be explosive, and fights like this only come along once in a while. Listen, you can make good fights and you get good fights, but the history here, the fact that they both come to the same club, an amateur club, you can see it's all there.
Obviously, the animosity between Ben and Eubank was great. I mean, where did these two guys rank in terms of that sort of feud?
Well, their stuff was, I think, more for want of a better phrase, a little bit of jealousy between the two of them. But whilst both of them were winning their world titles, this one goes back to when they're kids. I mean, this is a real, aggro on the block, and that's where it goes back to. And the 21st, I think it's going to be a really tense night. I think not just for the fighters, I think for the fans as well, because a lot of the people, from the area that we're in at the moment, have bought tickets for it because they know both the guys. So it's going to be for the Battle of West London as much as it is for the British and Commonwealth title.
And finally, a nice touch bringing them back down to Dale Youth as well. Idea and thinking behind that?
Well, it's where it all started off, wasn't it? It's where they both come from. So I thought it's nice for two reasons. One, to sort of get the feel of what it was all about, with the two of them, where they sort of learnt their trade, and it's good also to give some recognition to the amateur club that's produced two fine champions who are battling it out on the 21st.
Well said, Frank Warren. You know what? He's talked about tension. There'll be a lot of tension in the separate management stroke promotional camps, because the one that loses, it's a tough old road back, even though they're both relatively inexperienced. I think it's 14 and 10 fights respectively. It's a hard road back, and that's one of the risks. And that's why I'm generally against two unbeaten young prospects getting in the ring too early. I'm generally anti it, if you want to know the honest truth. But this one, I can see why this one's happened, because if James had a bad fight and maybe lost on points, or George had a bad fight and maybe lost on points, then it's lost. And I don't want this one to be lost. I want to see it happen. I just wish they were both 25 and 0, so a little bit more experienced over the longer distance, which is still something I'm mildly concerned about. Frank, by the way, will be a guest on this show, a guest for a fairly decent length of time on this show next Thursday. Keep the emails and keep the texts coming. I see online people are talking. If you're on East Side or Box Rec or Doghouse, keep the conversations going. I will be dragging stuff off of there as we go along. Anyway, so that's James and Frank. They're in the same corner and confident that they will both be winners. I always need a bit of balance. So Anchor also spoke to Adam Booth. Adam trains both George Groves and WBA heavyweight champion David Hayes. Started by asking Adam about George's shape.
It's fine, training's hard, he's a bit tired because there's still some hard training to do. 2 weeks and a few days left of training, so it's on schedule.
In your opinion, what advantage does George have over James?
An interesting question. In most assets of what a fighter needs, I believe George has more. There's one that James has over George, possibly two, and they're the things we're working on taking away from him and then applying what we know is George is better than him at.
Okay, and you're not going to divulge any of those?
Of course not. Of course not. And also, James thinks that George is only going to fight in one of two ways. Maybe George is going to fight in 5 or 6 ways.
Interesting. Looking ahead, I mean, a fight like this in London as well, it's got to be one of the biggest fights the capital's going to see for a long time, since the days of Eubank and Ben, the rivalry, the animosity, and also the calibre of fighters.
Yeah. Listen, it's the type of fight that boxing needs, and it's the type of fight that boxing should always have.
Well said, Adam Booth. He's good for a soundbite, Adam. He gets a lot of stick, but, I can't give him stick. I've known him a long time, and I think he's comes up with some great stuff. Anyway, he was there talking to Anchor about George Groves.